Coming up this week on the Digital Lifestyle Show, 880, Richard, Gary here, and we've got lots to fit in. We'll be talking about AI, writing song lyrics. We're talking about the latest updates to Windows 11. Gary's got a ton of smart home news. We've got EV news. Richard choosing a new car, music software, all sorts of stuff. So let's get straight to Richard and Gary. Richard, Gary, good evening.
Good evening.
Gary looking very festive there by the fireside.
Yeah, I've got my virtual Christmas tree up.
The best sort.
The real one, yeah.
Yes. No, I haven't got a real tree up. Yeah, I've got my outside lights up and on. First of December, I switched those on. Yeah. Got my twinkly lights. They're actually really nice. I do like those. And because you've got a playlist of the different effects you can apply, I'm sort of saying we must be one of the very few people who have a playlist for their Christmas lights. So when you're getting a bit far on this stuff when you've got playlists on your Christmas lights.
I have to say, I was mightily impressed with my neighbours down the road today. They've got a new display. Every year they go really to town on their Christmas decorations. They appear to have holograms this year, which is sort of smoke wafting up with holograms playing, and it's very good. A reindeer pulling a sleigh.
Fantastic. I remember when, I think it was when the first time I went to America, maybe 90, was it 94? It might have been earlier, 93, something 92, something like that. And it was in the end of November I was there, and the people I went to see there took me just round, American domestic housing to show that these things, people drive, could go and look at the houses and the lights that people put up, because now it's quite a big thing, but 30 years ago it wasn't really that big a thing here, but now it's getting there, isn't it? Even though with the cost of living and energy crisis, people are still going for town on them this year.
Yeah, they really are.
So, Richard, were you out putting your lights up like Chevy Chase in stapling your lights up outside?
No, with energy bills the way they are, I think I'm a bit more Scrooge than
single
than
candle
this year. Exactly. What? That many candles? Bah.
I mean, what you want to do is find out what angle you are to the nearest house which has got lights on, and position mirrors.
That's true. There is one across the road, actually. I might do that, actually. Yes, I pretend and say, look, there we go. My lights are up.
Yeah, well, my twinklies are up, and I do like those, but I'm not sure about the energy consumption, but I'm not looking at that. I'm just putting them up for now. Right. Well, we've got a few things for this week. We've got a couple of build stuff from Microsoft. I wanted to talk about Alexa as well, which is something we didn't mention. We sort of briefly touched on a couple of weeks ago. And Gary, you've got an update on Zigbee as well. And I've got a video posted, but I was going to use it. I've got a wireless Tonor microphone, but it's easy. It's not ideal for doing on your podcast. But yeah, I've been testing that out this week as well. So I get some strange looks from people as I've been around the house with a microphone trying to test the range of them. No more strange looks than I normally get, to be honest. But anyway, so while we're talking about smart home and lights and everything, we touched on the other week about Amazon sort of revealing some of the losses that have been made about the smart home stuff. We didn't go into the details. So first, the reason why I was Gary, what impact is this going to have? Are Amazon going to start pulling the plug on our little devices?
I don't think so, but what they may start doing, and in fact already have started doing, is start charging for extra bits of service. So, for example, Amazon Music used to be able to play anything within the restricted Amazon Music list of songs, which isn't actually all that restricted. There's quite a few of them there. But now, if you actually ask them to play a particular song, it'll play you a song like that song, unless you subscribe to Music Prime. In the States, it's starting to come over here as well, potentially. And that's a way of them raising some revenue for the devices, because they sell every single device at a loss, and they're making a huge loss on the division as a whole. But I think that there are the on-sale stuff potentially for Prime, for Amazon Music is really still really good for them. But there's a backlash against that. People are saying that they already paid for Prime, why are they having to pay for extra for the music side of things as well? So as usual, all this sort of stuff. But I don't think they'll stop making them. I think they're still very much seen as an interesting part of the things they do. They haven't been as successful for the one thing they really wanted them to do, which was to sell stuff. They were hoping people would use them to buy stuff, and that hasn't happened. I think everything they've tried to make easy sales hasn't happened. I do notice that we're starting to get a lot more advertising messages coming on as notifications.
Yes, I spotted that this week. Yeah,
like the recommendations and books and things, which is somewhat annoying.
And recommended apps or whatever they added.
Yeah.
They call it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was talk about they may actually have a Alexa Prime subscription, which allows you to avoid some of these ads and things, as another way of raising revenue on them. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's a problem at the moment. The cost of them just doesn't match what they actually cost to make. I mean, it's ridiculous the level of loss they make on each device. I mean, when you look at the sort of the new Echo Dot, which has got amazingly good speakers in them. I mean, if a standard hi-fi company was selling that, it'd be 100, 150 quid. I mean, it's just not. It's not. And you over prime time days, you were getting them in some places for less than £20. It's just like it's ridiculous at that sort of level. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely now what will happen, and definitely is happening, is that there's a huge cutback on the development of the AI side of things. So some of the stuff they were talking about having in terms of response, the more natural language response to your conversations, I don't think that's going to happen. Some of the things they were talking about where with the eye tracking, they would, because they did talk about the Echo I've got behind me, which you can't see because of my background. I've got, which is the ones which actually tracks you around the room, actually using that to respond to you without the use of the A word. I think that's not likely to happen just yet, and we may see more of a delay in stuff coming from the US to the UK as well, because I understand they cut a lot of the UK team in this process. So yeah, I think that's an area where we'll definitely see some impacts in terms of development of it. I think the actual devices are going to stay around. Whether we'll see newer devices, whether we'll see as much development on the actual devices going forward, I'm not so sure. But to be honest, they're fairly good as they are, aren't they? I mean, there's not much else you really want to improve on the devices. But yeah, it's pretty impressive.
But, Richard, this kind of indicate Microsoft's decision to kill off Cortana as a sort of consumer device?
I mean, I guess you could read it that way. I mean, I think there are other factors at play in Microsoft's decision to kill off the Cortana devices in terms of its just general pullback from the consumer world full stop, and ceding that to the likes of Samsung. But I think, as Gary says, it's not making the money and services that Amazon expected. It's not being the springboard into others, into people creating shopping lists that I think perhaps Amazon hoped. So yeah, this is kind of a step backwards. But I'm not sure it's the same as Microsoft cutting off Cortana really at this stage. Let's face it, it's been around for a lot longer and achieved far greater market penetration, just not being used in the way that Amazon hoped.
Yes, it's just not, people aren't buying stuff. I don't see how they can make it so that you would buy stuff through that. I mean, if you don't want to buy something, you just go on your browser, don't you, on your phone and buy stuff. But Cortana is great for controlling your lights and music, and we use it all the time in the kitchen for setting timers and things like that. But Amazon aren't making any money off that.
Yeah, I mean, I do wonder how much of it is also sort of an end user acceptance factor, because certainly in my household, even though I'm a massive enthusiast, I've been unable to make much headway with other members of the household in automating the house with these devices. And I wonder how many people have bought them, thought this is quite a cool thing, and then they've ended up being little more than glorified Bluetooth speakers. I mean, that's certainly what mine are now.
Yeah. And
very good Bluetooth speakers, I should point out, but
yeah,
glorified Bluetooth speakers nonetheless.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? We had that peak sort of interest, and then things settle down, and yeah, there's that cycle in it. But it's interesting to see what happens next.
Yeah, it will be. It will be, definitely will be. I mean, I have actually been playing a couple of other Echo devices. Some kind of people gave me an Echo Studio to play with, and that's I've now got that hooked up to the Fire TV 4K Max, which is interesting actually. The 4K Max is the first of the Fire TV sticks which has ARC on it, so that's the audio response channel on HDMI. So if you plug your 4K Max into your TV with an ARC output, you can then actually play the TV audio through your Fire TV, which means you can then redirect it to your Echo Studio or
right.
as an audio source. There are some strange restrictions on that, I have to say. One of the things you can do with ARC is control the volume of the receiver device or whatever you've got plugged in, which doesn't work with the Amazon Echo. You have to use voice or the Fire TV controllers to control the closed stuff. So obviously it's able, the Fire TV stick is able to control the volume on the Echo Studio because you can do it from the Fire TV remote control, but you can't do it from the TV remote control if it's using the control ARC. It's really confusing. And the other problem I found as well was originally I set it up on my Deco mesh network, and it really had all sorts of problems there. It kept dropping out. I lost audio quite regularly, wasn't able to actually maintain anything. And I saw a tip somewhere online that said that basically it doesn't work very well with mesh networks. And on the Deco, you can actually assign certain MAC addresses so they only ever link to one Wi-Fi router and don't try to hop. And that's what I've done now, and that's now rock solid. It's working really well, and I have to say it's really good quality. You know, the especially playing stuff off Fire TV where you've got the full Dolby Atmos stuff in there. Okay, it's only a single speaker, and it'd be probably better with more than one speaker, but it's pretty darn good. I have to say the quality is really good, and it does all the sort of setting itself up to the room and using the reflective surfaces to give you that pseudo feel of surround sound. So yeah, it's pretty good. And so yeah, and definitely this is the newer version of it, which is supposed to have the enhanced surround, multi-channel, whatever you want to call it. It's 3D surround sound, and that does seem to work a lot better than the previous version. But very, very, very good speakers. So definitely up there with the Tonor speakers in terms of quality. But yeah, it's quite impressed with that. So yeah, played with that quite a bit recently. Been playing with some more routines and trying to get. I don't know if you noticed that switches are now supported in routines as trigger points for starting a routine. So you can actually sort of if you've got a light switch which is recognised by Alexa,
like one of
you can actually use that to start a routine now.
Okay, right, yeah.
So for example, if you came in and turned the light switch on in a room, you could actually get it so it didn't put the lights on full. It maybe started dimmed them and turned the Christmas tree lights on while it's Christmas, for example, rather than turn the full lights on. So those sort of things are possible now, which weren't possible before. But yeah, there's a lot more. If you look on the initialize this routine for the smart home stuff, there's a lot more stuff on there. Whether we'll get more stuff again, obviously we talk about the reductions in staff, whether that will carry on growing. But certainly this year they've definitely done a lot of improvement on the routine side of things to make it more meaningful, which I'm making quite a bit of use of in the house.
Yeah, of course, it's that time of year as well where I get all my routines linked up with the Christmas stuff, and my favourite one is Count of Christmas. Yes.
Yeah, turn off Christmas. Yeah.
Of course, I've got. I think oh no, here they are. My trusty D-Link W215s. These are the ones I use for all my smart home stuff up until earlier this year. These are the ones. I've got the rest of the month to live, and then they die. Oh
yeah, that's the worry about smart home stuff.
Yeah. So so this works now, but as of 31st December, it's going to die and never come back to life apparently. So,
as I've mentioned on many occasions, the end of the year is the end of SmartThings support for its older interface, the Groovy interface. Although I think they've now extended that some of the devices will keep working for a few months. I think they're going to have to extend that again because they're well behind on their conversions of devices. So I think it could be a while before they could actually say no or no. But interestingly on that, one of the good advantages of this whole thing with smart things is a lot of people are selling the smart things devices off, and I've managed to get hold of a few. So I'm extending my smart things empire around the house. So I think I mentioned this a week or so ago. I had a Zigbee relay, which is really good, 4-channel relay. Works exceptionally well. Now, obviously, Zigbee is not a very long range signal. It needs boosting, and around the house that's okay. You've got the ability to have, most Zigbee devices act as repeaters, so you can, as long as you've got a few Zigbee devices around the house, you get a mesh build up in your dirt. But once you get outside or through multiple walls, it becomes an issue. So I wanted to set this relay up in my garage, to actually trigger the driveway gate we have. And I've currently got a Lightwave RF unit in there, but because of the walls and everything, it's not particularly reliable to receive the signal from the Lightwave controller. So I want to have something which is with a gate read or something. So it's very reliable. So what I managed to get hold of a few smart things hubs. I have a couple of spares actually, if any listeners are actually interested in them, because I got more than I actually really needed. And I've now added one of those into the garage, which obviously, and I've linked that to the relay in the garage, and obviously that's on the network, so it's very, very reliable, and it's absolutely rock solid. It just gives it. But the other great thing about that, because it's Zigbee, I get feedback. With Lightwave, I never got any feedback, so I actually know if the relay has actually switched. So if there's any problems with not switching, or for example, if the gate's blocked, so if it gets blocked, it won't actually fire. Then the relay would trip back the other way, and I get an indication of that. So yeah, it's working absolutely solidly. I'm really impressed with that device. And one of the things I actually discovered about the device as well was it actually has an infrared remote control option, and I managed to get hold of a small 433 megahertz button, which is brilliant because I've never had sort of manual control over the ability to lock the gate open. So I've just stuck that on the side of the controller and got an infrared button now, which you can just press to. Oh, sorry, 433 megahertz button, 9 thread, and just press it, and it locks the gate open, which is really good. So we've got delivery, sort of, we've got a big delivery coming. We can get gate back, so it's fine. But that works really well, and it's a really good example of good home automation use. And that's tied into Alexa. So if I know I've got something to be delivered, I can just tell Alexa to lock open the gate, and it'll actually do that. And that's a routine. Obviously, because lock open isn't a phrase you recognises normally. But yeah, that's it. Well. The other routine I've on smart things, which is one of the things I've just thought, why have I never thought about this before? I've got the curtain. Remember I mentioned I've got curtain openers and closers from Clickbot, and they actually integrate into smart things. So I can actually detect when the curtain's open and when it's shut. So now, when I shut the curtains at night, if it's past dusk, it turns the light on in the room as I shut the curtain. And if I draw the curtain in the morning and I've got the light on, it will turn the light off.
That's just so simple. A bit of intelligence, yeah.
Yeah, a bit of intelligence. Because I tend not to press the button to open the curtain. I'll just give it a slight tug, and that starts the motor and it opens it and shuts it. But actually, that's more useful than the open and shutting mechanism. The fact it detects it's open and shut, and then turns the light on and off. And that's just so obvious as a routine, but I just hadn't thought of doing it. And that's the combination for Alexa and smart things doing that together. And it seems to work really well.
That sounds good. You mentioned about AI before. Have you guys seen this Chat GPT AI thing that's doing the rounds at the moment?
Open AI stuff, yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen some of the examples of some of the stuff it's pulled through? It can generate.
I have. I'm not sure I'd pass them on my peer reviews when I do the code reviews,
but they're doing awesome. I mean, example, someone told me try get it to write lyrics to a song. So I went on there and told it to write me a Pet Shop Boys song, and the lyrics came out. In fact, my screen share is not working, but yeah, the lyrics came out almost instantly. And if I didn't tell you differently, you're not. Maybe it's not the best song they've ever written, but yeah, I found it here. Here we go. So here you go. So here's the lyrics to a Pet Shop Boys song that don't exist. and it was just AI generated, and in the city, neon lights shining bright, endless. That it looks like a Pet Shop Boys. It could be, but how is it generating this? What's the source of the data that's using to come up with all this?
It's just a lot of data.
It's a lot of data, and actually that does raise a question about all these AI things. Because also there's the AI art creations, and it's a lot of data. And I don't know about you, I've started to wonder in the last few weeks really how much permission has been given by people for this data to actually get used in this way, because all it's doing is scrunching up data that it's scanned and stuff looked in.
Yeah, because here's another one that I did: how to change the Windows 11 icon size, and it's pulled it back. But again, where's that come from?
So
yeah,
I mean, I'm starting to feel a little uncomfortable about if people are given permission for these incredibly complex AI machine systems to be able to actually use their data in this way. So not sure. But yes, it is, as you say, it's basically scanning the internet. You've kind of given it almost a query, and it's gone away and just said, okay, here's what I'm going to do based on my understanding of what you've asked for.
Yeah.
So yes,
and I've seen so many examples of it, like write an episode of Seinfeld, and that kind of thing, and there's the whole scene of Seinfeld, and it could be, it's quite, maybe it's not exactly right, but it is quite close to what you would expect.
But yeah, the way all machine learning works the same way. You give it lots of examples, and it tries to mimic those examples. That can lead to some interesting things. I mean, there's this whole thing around the Copilot, which Git has. So that's the source control library things, which actually is owned by Microsoft GitHub. And they came up with a sort of write your own code, write code for you, machine learning AI thing. And it started putting out comments on its code, which were from some other people's code. It was interesting. So it literally was copying people's code from other repositories, which weren't necessarily granted the right license to be able to do that.
Well, exactly. I mean, that's kind of how Copilot works. It looks across all the public repos and will basically try and work out what you want based on what's in those repos. But as you say, they may not be licensed in a way that permits that, particularly with that credit.
Yeah. So I think it's becoming. This is dangerous territory, but it's going to wait. It's going to have to wait until someone gets sued, basically, to see how it goes.
I mean, my concern is probably actually around Copilot and applications like that, and also the art generation stuff. When it goes, it's made an amazing picture. So it hasn't made an amazing picture. What it's done is it's taken lots and lots and lots and lots of source pictures, and out of that, it's put them together in this way. It's like, I start to feel a bit sticky now. Perhaps I'm being cynical.
And it's kind of, I suppose, kind of music analogy is almost like, in the 70s and 80s, you could get these albums which weren't, which was like a collection of the pop charts or whatever, but they weren't the actual original artist, whether they were somebody making a version of it, and then that would get put out as a compilation album. So, and it almost feels like in some respect that this is just taking other people's work and repackaging it slightly. But where's the fine line between an AI and just like you said, copyright theft?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. As Gary says, it's going to probably have to wait until somebody finally calls in the lawyers. And I can see that possibly happening sooner with something, obviously not exactly like, but something like Copilot, where you're taking code from existing public repos and it's being repurposed in an identifiable way, which is against the license. I can see the lawyers coming out to play about that one.
Yeah, it's all it is interesting, and and it's the pseudo. Yeah, it's like it's the nature of like the lyrics from in the style of and that kind of thing. So you can't really copyright that, but is it right that it's doing it? But then a human could do that anyway, couldn't they? So it's not something that can't be done already. Satirists have been around for years. So yeah, but it's not yeah, is just that kind of automated, and does it make for? I mean, how often is this being used in the generation of internet posts? That are just celebrity news type posts. I mean, they're using this AI could probably write the whole article.
I'm sure a lot of the clickbait have already been done like that for some time.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yes, I can think of more than one listicle type site which I'm pretty sure is using them now.
Yeah. Gary's actually coded this AI bot. This isn't really our Gary. He hasn't been on the show for 2 years.
I've uploaded myself to the cloud and just no. We laugh at someone I'm working with that has done that because we never actually see him on any of the calls. He just
Well, I'd say watch out about uploading yourself to the cloud, because the cloud has not been happy about it, has it?
No.
I mean, I know we're probably getting a bit enterprise now, but dare we mention the latest fairly substantial issue? I think Rackspace has had a fairly major problem.
Yes, Rackspace. Yes, and I don't use Rackspace, but I had some dealings quite recently. This from Friday with somebody that does, and it turns out to be a really major issue that they've had. It's with their hosted Exchange server, I think, wasn't it?
It's a huge one. Basically, it's taken out their hosted Exchange servers and the hosted Exchange server service. And which obviously lots of companies use that because it's a very convenient way of doing email, because obviously no one likes running on-prem Exchange because it's an absolute so-and-so to maintain without putting too fine a point on it. Basically they got just taken down. I'm not quite sure what's happened yet. I mean, I don't know if you've heard any more, but it's basically they've ended up having to, I think, give customers Microsoft licenses to use Microsoft's own Exchange Online. But I've not seen anything about how customer mailboxes would be migrated or what exactly has happened, but it sounds pretty bad. People have lost access to their Exchange client or the Exchange domain, and also their emails that may be being stored there as well.
Yeah, I think they were offering Microsoft 365 type account hosting, but I think Microsoft haven't got enough capacity to get those spun up quickly enough. So I think it's a ransomware attack, wasn't it?
I mean, I've not had that confirmed. I mean, it sounds like ransomware to me, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
But I don't think the company's confirmed.
Yeah, TechCrunch is saying ransomware. So I don't know. This is just a new article. This is from where are we? A couple of hours ago. Yes, I'll share this, but TechCrunch is saying that Rackspace confirmed it was hit by a ransomware attack.
Okay, so it's ransomware. Yeah. I mean, but it's kind of a reminder about that, sticking things in the cloud. There's no guarantee, because this has been a lengthy outage. It's been days now, hasn't it? Really?
Yeah, it has. For Friday, and I think this shows you why. I think I should have had a medal for my time hosting Exchange server, but it just shows you why it's hard to host Exchange server, as you said, and why people like me move it off to the cloud.
It's very hard, and not least because Microsoft would dearly like to use Exchange Online, but just keeping Exchange patched and up to date, because Exchange has been the subject of some really serious attacks in the last year or so. So there's very good reasons to hand it over to other companies who you would hope would be better able to maintain it. But this is quite an impressive outage, I have to say. It's wow. Yeah, they've gone hard down.
yeah, it was. Yeah, so it makes me as all these things in IT security, it's you never can feel too smug, because there's always something around the corner. So you could have just hosted your Exchange server for 10 years and moved it to Rackspace and then got hit by this. You just the way it is. But I do think that you'd have to find good reason not to let Microsoft host your Exchange server now. I think it's getting to, I can't think of that many good reasons myself, and maybe some legislation or something like that, but it doesn't make a lot of sense now to host it anywhere else.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the issue with Exchange hosting and using any of Microsoft's services in the EU specifically has always been to do with issues around sovereignty, where your data is, where it's being processed. But I think Microsoft are taking steps to address that. I think this year, by the end of this year, that they're going to have some things in place which will make it easier to control where your data is. Google's doing, Google's doing the same as well with its services. So yes, I guess if using Exchange at the moment, it seems to be. Microsoft seems to be okay, but then again, they could be next. That's the worrying thing here. Yeah, it could be anybody in Rackspace. That's a big company. So Microsoft could be next. There's no guarantee. There's no. You can't be having regular backups elsewhere and going, well, there. I use the buzzword multi-cloud.
Yes, which is a lot harder than it sounds.
That's a lot harder.
It's a lot harder. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of, you get to have the worst of both worlds. Happy days.
It's interesting though, but it's the kind of thing that when you move your hosting to a cloud provider, you think, that's done. I've done my bit. I've handed that over now. Yes, but it's not quite as simple as that.
No.
No. I do feel for those guys using that, and I'm sure Microsoft thing. Thank you very much. It's another thing for that, but it's a Microsoft vulnerability according to this article. Anyway, we'll see whether that turns out to be the case.
It could well be. I mean, Exchange has had its fair share of holes. The question would be, it might be a vulnerability, but was there a patch available for it that hadn't been rolled out yet?
Yeah, that's true as well.
Many unknowns still.
Yeah. Now moving back into more consumer stuff. Did you see this story today about Microsoft is eyeing a super app to break Apple and Google's hold on mobile search? And this was on the information, and I saw it on the Verge or one of those on the sites as well. So this is where they're Microsoft potentially working on a super app for mobile devices. It's going to bring a lot of their services together, and they've hired a former Uber executive to push this to consumers, not just for sort of the Microsoft 365 enterprise type stuff. It would certainly be interesting if they push back to going back to consumers.
I did see that. Yeah, that was on the information, wasn't it? Yeah, it's one of those things, kind of big company working on big thing, and not much more than that really. Kind of no dates when this thing might happen. What it might be. Dare I say it? Perhaps a bit of a slow news day. I don't want to be too cynical here. Here around it, but it's I mean, Microsoft has been trying to do this thing for this kind of thing for a long time with various apps, trying to bring together its various services in one place.
We shall see.
We shall see. I mean, would companies go for it? And also you've got to try and get it into the Apple ecosystem. And Apple tends to be quite difficult about things that it seems as being as competing with its native services. So okay, that could be fun. And I know Microsoft has enough trouble even getting Microsoft 365 working on or rather allowing customers to purchase its services through Microsoft 365 without giving Apple a cut. So it's all a bit tricky. We'll see what happens there. This Uber app, this mega app that's going to bring together all its services in one place on a mobile platform. We'll see. It kind of feels like something they've been talking about for a long time and never really made happen. We'll see.
And to be honest, the separate apps work really well. I know that a lot of people running Outlook as the mail client. I use Authenticator, OneNote. I use all these apps. So it's not really that I think, if they're only in one place, I'd use them all. I use them anyway. But I know I'm obviously biased, but so that they are good offerings. I think Office on mobile is always in the top list of apps, isn't it? So it's not like they've not got any presence on there.
No, not at all. It's just I'm not sure what benefit this would necessarily bring, apart from maybe trying to provide a channel for advertising, perhaps. But
and pushing Office not Office. We don't use that anymore, do we? Now it's Microsoft 365.
Microsoft 365. Yeah. Office is no more. But I'm just not sure. I mean, I just can't see them doing it seriously. And they have done this sort of thing before. And with trying to bring their services under one app, and it's never really worked particularly well, or been very satisfying, or proven very popular. I mean, you are trying to get into a market that's really used to using Google services, it being Android, or using Apple services with a smattering of Google, it being iOS. So it almost feels as though they'd be fighting upstream. And as you say, it's a consumer play, which, let's face it, Microsoft is not the most consumer-friendly of companies, apart from Xbox, obviously.
Yeah. Interesting to see, and then like whether it turns up. But are you suggesting that it's getting towards the end of the year and it's getting to slow news? You couldn't possibly comment.
I couldn't possibly comment, but being a bit of a space fan, I was somewhat surprised to see quite a lot of coverage of the Orion moon mission on some fairly major national news sites. I thought, crikey, there's other things happening in the world, really and true. This is there's more things going on than this.
You can give us an update on that as well, because I think something's happened, isn't it? The rocket's on its way back now, isn't it?
It burned it did its burn around the moon. There's been a few issues, some communication problems, bits and pieces, but on the whole, it's still performing like a champ, from what I can see. And the Orion capsule should be splashing down in the ocean, I think, on Sunday. So everyone will keep holding their breath because it's got a few things to do. I think it's done its last major burn of the service module now. There'll be probably some minor course corrections between now and Sunday. And then it will re-enter the atmosphere, much like the old Orion, the old Apollo capsules used to do, except very, very fast, and should splash down, and then they should be able to recover it and get the bits out that they need for Artemis 2, and hopefully learn an awful lot about how the capsule performs during re-entry. So yes, we've just got until Sunday to wait now, and for it all to have gone well, but a lot can happen. I know, talking to some of the European Space Agency people, that they'd be holding their breath right up until the point the capsule separates from the European service module, which will obviously happen above the Earth, and then the ESM will then burn up. So there's still there's a lot to happen, and there have been a few glitches here and there, but on the whole, it's still performing like a champ.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good to know. I will have an update on that next week. I think what else have we got update you on? Oh, I did. We talked about the code collection on Windows last week. I managed to get the video done of that, so that's on the YouTube channel and on the site. So it took me ages to do that. Actually, 12 virtual synths. What started off, well, this won't take me long to do. It took forever. And I had to do some re-edits on it. And when you start something and then you think, gosh, this is taking a lot longer. So anyway, that's on there, so you can have a look at that. But yeah, it's nice to do something a bit different for a change. And my Tonor wireless microphone review is on there as well. We do have a couple of Windows 11 updates. We got a update tonight, in fact, for the beta channel. So 22621.1028 for no features, and 22623.1028 for with features, but not very much in this. In fact, no new features in it at all.
But a lot of bug fixes.
Yes, and there's a bug bash coming up. I think that's why they've done that, isn't it? But I always thought the bug bashes used to be on the dev channel. Now I don't remember a bug bash on the beta channel before. Do you? Am I right thinking that right?
I don't know. And if you also do the bug bash and are a good little Windows Insider, they'll give you a badge as well. So it's like
yes. I'm sure I've all done these on the dev channel before, but maybe not. Maybe I've done them on other channels as well.
I'm trying to think. No, I think it's been on beta before, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, probably has. Makes sense. Yeah, but I always relate it to sort of well, it used to be to a quarterly update, or a half yearly update, didn't it? One of the, but those days have gone away now, and beta seems to get a lot more love than it used to do. I think, as you mentioned before, you sometimes you get features in there before they hit the dev channel now.
Yes, that's true. It's a bit strange, because they all. I mean, I guess they did say dev channel was where they'd be trying stuff out, whereas beta is where things might get released. So I guess it is becoming clear that they are two very different code bases in some ways.
Yeah, and there's a not huge, but there's quite a big list of features in there, especially around the task manager and the tray, which seems to be where a lot of work's going into.
Yes.
And I suppose these changes will make the way to release preview. Well, maybe not now the end, or maybe just before it'll sneak in this year, and then they end up as a non-security update, don't they, at some point? As a preview update.
I mean, at this point, it's now the start of December. They'll probably be looking at their vacation schedule fairly soon. So I would hope they wouldn't try and push anything out to release preview until next year now, just in case it does go horribly wrong. Because let's face it, everyone needs a break.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because I think end of last week we got a preview. These preview releases now, where you get offered the upgrade or the update in Windows Update, and then it's the one that gets pushed out. I think it's the following month usually, isn't it? Something like that.
Yeah. Was that part of the Windows 10 thing that came out recently, where they've changed Windows 10, so it will now also give you the option to upgrade to Windows 11? Was that a thing that happened in Windows 10 recently?
Oh, that was, yeah. They removed some more blockers, didn't they? I think. Yeah.
So I think there's been a thing, but because Windows 11 adoption hasn't gone well, I think it's safe to say it's not really. It's riding the wave of people upgrading PCs rather than people upgrading the operating system because of the hardware limitations.
Yeah.
Or hardware restrictions, rather. So
yeah, they're self-enforced, that, isn't it?
Exactly. So last time I looked at the stats, Windows 10 was still way ahead, and Windows 11 was just bumbling along. Really, it was kind of, it seemed after its initial spurt, which happened sort of earlier this year, it then slackened off again. It's just now gradually going up as people change over PCs.
Yeah, I think it's because of the restrictions. Even if you want, for most, if you can have it, you probably would have done it. If you want it, then there's ways around it. But most people aren't going to bother. They're just going to upgrade with new hardware, aren't they? So maybe this holiday season, as they Microsoft like to call it, we'll see. We'll see a bump, but it's just going to be a gradual thing because the PCs last a long while now, don't they? Especially if you've got one with a bit of SSD and.
Well, yes, I mean,
they'll last.
I mean, this is actually one of my issues. I mean, obviously, I've got the Windows 2003 the dev kit, which has had a few strange problems in the last week, actually, which I might say about in a minute. And that's my Windows 11 PC. But my other two PCs, which run Windows 10, they're very old to the point where they don't qualify either for the CPU or the CPM rules. But they're so fast with an SSD and lots of memory that I can see myself easily going until 2025 when Microsoft officially pulls the plug of Windows 10, because there's just no need to change them. I wouldn't buy new hardware until I'm forced to. I think when that 2025 thing comes around, there'll be a lot of people saying, "Oh, hold on a second. It's like we've got to buy new hardware to run the new OS, even though the existing stuff works really, really well." It's not like going from Windows XP or Windows 7. It's Windows 10 to 11. There doesn't feel to be that much difference apart from the GUI changes. So anyway, we'll see.
Yeah.
3 years to go. 2 years to go.
Yeah, 2 years. Yeah, they'll soon come round as well.
It will soon come round.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be still all doing this, and then we'll be talking about them. And Windows 12 maybe by then. Don't tell anybody we know about that.
You Windows insiders, crikey.
Yeah, I
MVP secrets. Shush.
Yeah, I don't think anybody outside of a very small group would know what Microsoft are doing with that. I think they keep that pretty well under wraps, even within the Microsoft teams. I'll ask the chatbot, the AI chatbot. Can you mock me up a Windows 12 operating system?
Yeah, exactly. You should do it, and then it will go out and find all those people who've done PowerPoints and things, and go, yes. I'll scrape those together. I've mummed it up, and there we go.
Okay, so you mentioned about the dev kit. Go on, just tell us how that's.
Oh, yeah. So it's still going strong. I use it every day. It is my main production machine. I have had two weird problems with it so far, which I've not got to the bottom of yet. One is the mini display port doesn't always seem to wake up. Occasionally, I have to do a hard reset on turning it on, which is a bit odd. I'm not sure if that's my screen or the box itself. It never did it through USB-C. It only does it through the mini display port. And I've read other people having problems with the display hardware as well. So it might be a problem there. The other one's really weird. The clock is slow. About 5 minutes slow.
It's really weird.
And it's like, why is it slow? It should sync. Synced, yeah, I've synced okay. Well, you've not. You're 5 minutes slow. And so that's a really weird one. So I don't know what's going on there. That's a very, very strange one. Because it syncs automatically. I'd understand it if it was an hour or so out, because it could be a time zone issue, but 5 minutes slow is a bit strange.
Yeah,
and that's
mess your authentication things up and
well, exactly. It breaks a lot of stuff. That clock being wrong. But the thing is, I've not heard anyone else having that problem, so I'm thinking it must be me somewhere. But I'm not sure what it is I'm doing. I mean, it may be looking in the wrong place for its time. I'm not quite sure, but it is an odd one. So I was hoping Gary would have some ideas, but he sounds as befuddled as I am.
I'm totally puzzled by that one.
Although, Gary, you will be pleased to know, on the EV front, could be a Kia Niro EV, could be in the shopping basket.
You've got away from the MG then?
I have gone over from the MG. Well, see, I like the. I've been EV shopping, and I've tried out the new MGs, and the MG, the big one. I think it's called the SV. I think that's quite an unpleasant vehicle, in that it feels very last generation. But the MG4 is bang up to date. It was really, really good. But unfortunately, the other purchaser in the household has got a bit of a bad back and found the seat quite low down and quite sporty.
Yeah, I was going to say that'd be too low for you. I mean, the next generation probably going to be right. I can't knock the choice of the Niro EV. That's a great car.
But yes, I mean, then I had a look at the Hyundai Ioniq and also the Kia EV6, which are both great, but a bit big for my liking. And then tried the previous generation Niro, which won all the awards last year. And that's very good. And then tried the Niro EV, the 2022 version, and it's incredible actually. It's very, very. I was very surprised how good it was.
Oh, it's a great car. I mean, I went to the launch of that vehicle, and it was blowing everybody away at the time. So yeah, very good car.
So that could be on that could be either one, which I'll let you know next week if I've actually put the deposit down.
And what kind of lead times are you talking on these now?
I think that the particular spec level I'll be looking at is February time.
Well, that's not too.
But some of them, I mean, some would go for longer because Kia do 3 levels of specification: level 2, 3, and 4. If you go for the lowest level, I gather the lead time is quite a bit longer, but the higher level it's quicker. So handy, really.
Oh yeah, so let us know next week.
Yes, exactly. Yes, it's very simple. And the thing is, but I mean, all EVs do seem to have colossal lead times, and again, and it's been a while since I last bought a car in this way, and I was kind of hoping to have a bit of negotiation of the price and things, that kind of thing, which is what I did when I was much younger. And no, not anymore. That doesn't happen now. It's okay. So it costs this much. You don't want it. There's a whole queue of people behind you who do. So, supply and demand is not playing in my favour today.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, you can't. I've never been that much of a fan of that. I thought, I just rather than give me a decent price to start with, to haggle. Exactly. But some people love it. I mean, it's like that scene out of Monty Python, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. I mean, I hate haggling with a passion, but you kind of feel you can at least try.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know what? I was almost relieved. I was, oh, thank God, I don't have to try and haggle. That's fine. It's a fair price anyway.
A shekel.
A whole shekel.
Yeah, I agree. I know what you mean, but supply and demand. That's the thing, isn't it? At the moment, I wonder whether we'll see a change in that because of the costs, because of the interest rates, and various economic things. Whether we'll see the things settle down a bit.
Just yes, it's going to be a strange few years for sure.
Yeah, Gary, do you think those markets for the EVs will just normalise?
Well, I think there's a lot going on at the moment. There's under production on EVs. The manufacturers just completely didn't actually appreciate the demand levels, which has one effect. Then there's component shortage, which obviously there are components using EVs, which are in short supply at the moment. So those are, but that affects other vehicles as well. but yeah, it also is really advantageous to the motor manufacturers to keep a supply like this. They can make bigger profits if they've got tighter supply lines, and obviously they're not producing vehicles. It's not costing them in real materials and not costing them in people. If they're making higher profits on lower volume, it actually works for them. So yeah, there's I mean, that's kind of conspiracy theory level, but it's kind of the thing I'm seeing at the moment. I think there's definitely some of the constrictions which were there are no longer there, yet we seem to still have a lot of constriction on supply.
Yeah. Oh well, we'll see. It'll be interesting how you get on with that, Richard. Then.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see when it arrives, but also the other bits and pieces like getting a home charger, how long that's going to take to actually get in, because there's so many supply chain constraints at the moment.
Yeah, I'm sure. Okay,
That's
so
him.
Where can we find you? I shall just copy and paste the links that I had on last week's show for you, Richard.
That's the best bet, yeah. look at Richard Speed on Mastodon, and I should turn up.
Yeah,
somewhere.
Yeah, and Gary, where can we find you? And what's on your YouTube channel at the moment?
Well, on my YouTube channel, I've just I posted fairly recently a walkthrough of the new Android Auto, the Cool Walk. I think I want to call it Cakewalk, Cool Walk, because it certainly hasn't been a cakewalk for Android, Amazon getting it. Google getting it out, because they seem to have taken a very long time to get this new version of Android Auto out, and it's still only in preview. But yeah, I've done a walkthrough of that on the EV6, and it is very good, I have to say. It looks a lot nicer than the older version of Android Auto, and actually goes full screen on the wide screen, which is really nice. So that's the latest video, which you can find on my EV Owner YouTube channel. If you want to find anything else about me, you can follow me on social media at Gary WMA, and I'm at Gary WMA at mas.to on Mastodon.
Excellent. Right. Well, I'm going to go and get the chat bot to write the script for the show for next week's show. So we won't all need to be here next week.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Powered by AI.
Yeah. Right. Well, we shall see you next week.
I mean, the key thing is it going to write the Christmas quiz for us? That's the one I want to know.
Oh yes, I better think
Don't
about
encourage
that.
him.
Yes, I think I'll have to think about that next week. Yeah, for the week after. Yeah, good idea. I shall go and get the chat bot to help me with that.
Take care, everyone.
All right. See ya.
Okay. Cheerio.